Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, regarding Risalat al-Huquq and other works. So what was their relationship like?
I think from the very beginning of when he saw his father in the land of Sham, and the way his father was abused when he entered the land of Sham, there was an unbelievable closeness that developed between them. There's always going to be a closeness between a father and a son. But there was an unbelievable closeness that developed between them because he saw his father entering Sham, chained up. He saw someone coming to curse his father. And the reason I mention this is because later on it would affect him in his life if someone came to curse him. So he saw, for example, that his father was cursed by someone, and his father was attacked, and his father would simply reply to the person, "Oh man, have you not read the Quran where Allah says, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ?" Have you not read the Quran? وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ وَلِلرَّسُولِ. Have you not read in the Quran, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى? So he witnesses that his father, with all the attacks he received while in Sham, always replied back in a pleasant way. At the same time, he'd witnessed his father, that even after Karbala, he'd witnessed that his father was still in pain as to what happened to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Imam al-Baqir, many times he'd narrate that in Medina, it wasn't so easy for us, in the sense that my father, if he walked past a butcher who was about to sacrifice or slaughter a sheep, he'd ask the butcher, "Do you give water to the sheep before you sacrifice it?" And the butcher would say, "Yes, of course I do. Every creation of Allah deserves water before it dies." And so he would say that I would see my father's eyes tear up, and my father would look at the man and say to him, "My father, Imam al-Hussein, was not given water before he died." So you witness that there's that emotional closeness. But the beautiful aspect then is that he witnessed that his father didn't allow the emotional difficulties to affect his spread of the religion. Because Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam recognized that those very people who killed his father at Karbala were people who in their prayers praise Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. So Imam Zayn al-Abidin recognized society needed a reform. And Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, with his brother Zayd, you find, were amongst those who would be chief narrators of one part of the chain from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. Risalat al-Huquq we receive as one part of the chain from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, and from Zayd, and later after that from Zayd's son Yahya, and so on. So it's very important for us to understand that Imam al-Baqir in that period, while he's in Medina, he is under his father's tutelage. He's seeing his father produce these works so that there is a complete reform of society. People begin to understand their responsibilities again.
And what is the importance of this today? I mean, us understanding Risalat al-Huquq today and these other works. Like what role can a work like Risalat al-Huquq have for mankind?
Well, Risalat al-Huquq is a fundamental work. And I would say is a work which has to be studied by every follower of the message of the religion. Because today, unfortunately, we have human riots rather than human rights. People are more concerned in bickering with each other and showing no tolerance to each other, no empathy of each other's situations. And Risalat al-Huquq was a work which was produced to remind the human being that God has a right over you, and yourself has a right over you, and your eye has a right over you, your tongue has a right over you. Your stomach has a right over you, your prayers, your fasting, your parents, your wife, your children. Risalat al-Huquq isn't a risala just for Medina in the year 70 AH. Risalat al-Huquq is a piece of work on human rights which may be argued to be one of the first documents of human rights that we have. People will point to the Magna Carta, and people will point to other human rights or rights documents, the Bill of Rights and so on, the Universal Declaration of Rights. But there is a need for people to go further and study this great work. This great work, were it not for someone like Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, would not reach us. Many Muslims have to reflect and ask themselves that I as a human being, who has rights over me? Is it just fellow humans who have rights over me? Does my stomach, for example, or my eyes, which have been given to me as blessings, have rights over me? The Lord who created me has a right over me. The parents who have helped me in my life have rights over me. So that's a document which can help each one of us. And I tell you, had some of us read a work like Risalat al-Huquq earlier in our lives, then our behavior with certain people or our behavior with certain relationships would have been so much different. As in, you find that there are certain rights where if we were to observe them properly, then we wouldn't have problems within our lives, because we would have observed those rights properly. But sometimes we bring problems onto ourselves because we've neglected these magnanimous works that are with us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Said. Thank you. The brother's first question was regarding Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam using the days of Arafah during Hajj to spread remembrance about Imam al-Husayn's message. And the second question was, did Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam stress on the importance of majalis of Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam and Azadari?
I think the two answers go hand in hand. In his will, actually, before he passes away, he stresses that there is a certain amount of money which is to be given at Mina, because Mina, everyone's gathered at Mina. That everyone who gathers at Mina, there's a certain amount of money to be given for the recital of the majalis and the remembrance of the message of Ahlul Bayt and the message of his grandfather Imam al-Husayn. That some narrations mention that in his will he had written, I want 800 dinar given to those who remember my grandfather at Mina. In other words, he's stressing on the idea that in a place like Hajj, do not forget that were it not for my grandfather Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam, there would be no Hajj. It's my grandfather's martyrdom and the sacrifice of his life for the principles of the religion of Islam, which meant that we have a Hajj like what we have today. And further than that, I would say over 110 to 120 reciters of the majalis, or the commemoration lectures and eulogies of Imam al-Husayn, graduated from the class of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam.
Inshallah.
That Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, as we mentioned earlier in the program, he was at Karbala. He saw the atrocities of Karbala. There is no way he'd live his life unless he'd ensure that the Azadari of Imam al-Husayn, the majalis of Imam al-Husayn, the lectures related to it, the eulogies, the poetry, the congregations had to be stressed upon. And that's the message for us in our communities today. That you have certain people who unfortunately will turn up for the majlis of Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam, but tomorrow the majlis of Imam al-Baqir himself, you won't find that, you may find people saying we're busy, or we don't really have time, or it's a day of rest for us because it's a Sunday. Whereas the reality is, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, how many things could he have mentioned in his will? And many people always say, when you're writing your will, you're always going to make sure you write the most important thing. It's your last moments, you want to stress on something. He stressed that please make sure that you remember my grandfather and his struggles on the 10th of Muharram.
Absolutely.
And he would always ask for poets to recite poetry around him in honor of his grandfather.
And just kind of related, but not really, was there a link between Hajj and the fact that the distance, I believe, between Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam and Imam al-Husayn is the same as Safa and Marwa?
Yeah, there is an opinion that the distance between Abu Fadl and Imam al-Husayn is the same as Safa and Marwa.
So could that be the reason as well, that there was such an emphasis?
No, I wouldn't think so. No, I think, Hajj is a period of congregation. It's a period where people bring themselves towards Allah. And on at Arafah you're remembering Imam al-Husayn through his dua. So why not remember him at Mina through a majlis?
Absolutely. I believe we have another caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, brother. I know the topics on Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam, but Brother Ammar mentioned how Muawiyah appointed Yazid as being a Khalifa. Now, my question on that is basically, some people say that it wasn't Muawiyah's fault that his son turned out the way he was, and thus we can't blame everything that took place in Karbala as a result of Muawiyah appointing Yazid as a Khalifa. So can you perhaps shed some clarification on that? That's the first question. And the second question is related to the knowledge of Imam Baqir alayhi salam. We know that the name Baqir itself means the one who divides knowledge. So what I'd like to know is that why is there very little mention of him in when it comes to traditions in other schools? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Father. Inshallah, the first question, I don't know if you want to bring it up, is Muawiyah, could it be fairly argued that perhaps Muawiyah is not to blame for how his son turned out?
Well, every human being, of course, has their own free will in this world. But at the same time, you yourself know your son's character better than most.
Yeah.
You live with your son, you see his behavior and so on. And Muawiyah had agreed with Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam when they had signed the treaty known as Sulh al-Hasan. One of the clauses was, the Caliph goes back to Ahlul Bayt, it doesn't go to your son. And his son was known as a drunkard, his son was known as a womanizer, his son was known to be around the musicians. And really, if you ever want to understand his son's character, that he had absolutely nothing to do with the religion, there are two important aspects. The first is the line of his son when he says, I wish I was around my Christian uncles, because Yazid's mother, Maysoon al-Kilabiyya, is a Christian woman from Syria. And he used to say, I love to be around my uncles, the Christian side. Why? Because he felt that that aspect, where he was more free than what was seemingly the more rigid Islamic responsibility, he enjoyed. Then number two, his line when he plays with the teeth of Imam al-Hussein. And he says, later أشياخي ببدر شهدوا جزع الخزرج من وقع الأسى لا أهلوا واستهلوا فرحا ثم قالوا يا يزيد لا تشل لعبت هاشم بالملك فلا خبر جاء ولا وحي نزل. He himself is making these lines. He's saying very clearly that I wish my ancestors from Badr were present at Karbala. Meaning that Badr was Jahiliyyah versus Islam, and I wish that those same Jahili ancestors were present to see how we've now destroyed Muhammad's message. There was no revelation and there was no message. So you found that this Yazid, his father knows him better than anyone else. And because his father had made an agreement already that he would give the caliphate back towards the Ahlul Bayt, and then he broke it blatantly, and then he tells Yazid on top of that, he says to him, Yazid, beware of Hussein ibn Ali, Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab, Abdul Rahman ibn Abu Bakr, and Abdullah ibn Zubair. As in Hussein son of Ali, Abdullah son of Umar ibn al-Khattab, Abdul Rahman son of Abu Bakr, Abdullah ibn Zubair. These are sons of the most famous companions according to many of the schools in the religion of Islam. Yeah, he tells them, beware of each one of these. In other words, highlighting that, these types of people, yes, they may have had fathers who sacrificed for the religion, but you got to keep a guard on these. Some people say, well, Yazid didn't kill Imam al-Hussein because Yazid was in Syria and Imam al-Hussein got killed in Karbala. And our reply always is, yes, Yazid didn't personally pick up the dagger and kill, but Yazid appointing Ibn Ziyad, telling him to become governor of Kufa, telling him to bring Imam al-Hussein's head, and that's exactly what Ibn Ziyad did for him.
Thank you. I believe
حق الأم. وأما حق الرحم فحق أمك أن تعلم أنها حملتك حيث لا يحمل أحد أحدا وأطعمتك من ثمرة قلبها ما لا يطعم أحد أحدا وأنها وقتك بسمعها وبصرها ويدها ورجلها وشعرها وبشرها وجميع جوارحها مستبشرة فرحة محتملة لما فيه مكروهها وألمها وثقلها وغمها حتى دفعتها عنك يد القدرة وأخرجتك إلى الأرض فرضيت أن تشبع وتجوع هي وتكسوك وتعرى وترويك وتظمى وتظلك وتضحى وتنعمك ببؤسها وتلذذك بالنوم بأرقها وكان بطنها لك وعاء وحجرها لك حواء وثديها لك سقاء ونفسها لك وقاء تباشر حر الدنيا وبردها لك ودونك فتشكرها على قدر ذلك ولا تقدر عليه إلا بعون الله وتوفيقه.